Good morning, this is my Minitrix Mallard, which is starting to spin its wheels, so it needs new traction tyres. But on an old video I was asked, how do you reconnect the rods on a Mallard? And quite simply, before you take it apart, take lots and lots of photographs. But things are prone to breaking, like that slider is plastic, that pin is plastic. On some of the other models in the Minitrix range, they're made out of metal and it isn't a problem. Another issue is when you do take it apart is this little complex arrangement here can get reversed. So you have to be very careful with this stuff. Don't bend anything, but if anything plastic does break, you've had it. There are no spare parts here, and the way that the end of these rods goes into the cylinders is quite difficult to put back together should you actually pull it apart and make a mess of it. But there aren't any spare parts. You can find motors, you can find traction tyres. They are still very much available. But anything else, you're looking to go onto eBay and find one of these that doesn't work and hopefully put them together and get one locomotive out of two. Now there's the traction tyres, same side as the gears. Doing the first one is quite easy. You just require a wrench to undo that bolt, and with the rod free you can remove the traction tyre and replace it quite easily. This one behind the valve gear though is something else and requires a huge amount of patience to be able to stretch the tyre. What I had to do was disassemble the valve gear to give me space. There's just one screw in the top, and should you require to remove the motor, there's just two screws in the back there. Not much of a cab on these old Minitrix models, but there you have it. This is 1980 technology, when I was only 15. So tools required: screwdrivers, which will help you stretch the traction tyre, and that little wrench, and of course a pair of traction tyres, which are, as you can see, considerably smaller than the wheels. So with the body off, you've got a weight which is removable, it just rests there, and then that is where the valve gear goes into the plastic. And it's time to do the rear tyre first. Say, if you need to clean the motor, you can take those two screws out. When I'm rotating the wheels, I prefer to do it by simply rotating the motor by hand rather than removing the motor. But you can remove the motor, it's no problem. This little spanner, this little box spanner, is readily available on eBay, and you just undo that one bolt. The rod is now free and you can prise off the tyre, which I have done. Now there's the new tyre sitting within the old tyre. You can see the size, and that is the part number. As I say, those are very easy to find on eBay. And they will fit all of the Minitrix Pacifics, whether it's Mallard, Gresley, Britannia, Boadicea or Flying Scotsman, it's the same part number. So I've managed to stretch the first tyre around, and it's time to pop that bolt back in, and then I've got to rotate the wheels in order to get at the bolt for the front to about that position. Now I can get the box spanner on it, undo it, get rid of the old tyre, and then with a great deal of patience get the new tyre on. and it's on. But as you can see, the valve gear kind of springs out of the piston block. That one on the far side has sprung out, so I've got to be very, very careful putting the body back on to make sure I do not bend anything. And it's back on. It never seems to fit correctly around here. But then it's old, and we have 2 old tyres ready for the bin, and my spares are gone, so I'm going to be going onto eBay and ordering some more. And now the test. Give it a run, see if it will pull 5 coaches up the hill. Now I've been asked to run Sir Nigel Gresley with a full selection or full rake of coaches. There you go, goes up the hill now, no problem. Now it's on fresh rubber. Now I did explain in the comments why I do not use a full rake. Firstly, it looks far too long for my layout. There we go, 10 coaches. And it's far too long for my station. I wouldn't like to make a station long enough to accommodate that lot. But there is one overall reason, and the train's just coming to a halt, and it's spinning up. So even though these inclines are correct, it's still too steep for 10 coaches. Here we go again. See, I don't think it looks right. Not on a model layout this small. And all I'm doing there is burning traction tyre trying to get it up the hill. That's a bit odd. A Cromwell? So back to 5 coaches. Maybe a slight hesitation, but it makes it up all right. Sorry about not showing you how to change traction tyres in full. It's just impossible to get myself in a position where I can do the work and have a camera zoomed in at a suitable rate to make it actually worthwhile recording what I'm doing. It takes a bit of getting used to, but it's very satisfying when you do. Ta-ra.